Hi everyone, my name is Joachim and I'm the co-founder of StepUpLabs. Our mission is to help you to create a lifestyle you want, doing what you love. And I'm going to do this Facebook Live session today about work-life balance. Why work-life balance? Well, because it seems that for most people, that is one of the most pressing questions, not only when they first start a business, but even if they are still an employee or if they are actually working as a freelancer. Work-life balance is something that is always a pressing matter. It's so easy to get caught up in whatever you need to do to either develop your business or to work for clients or to do your job, that it's difficult to keep track of what really matters to you. So I'm going to explore a few concepts with you today that might help you with creating a healthy work-life balance for yourself. I have a confession to make first. It's a bit difficult for me to talk about this because I really dislike the term work-life balance. So that makes it difficult to talk about it, right? I will explain at the end of this session why I dislike this term so much. So stay tuned. It's not going to take very long. So what are we really talking about? Work-life balance, what is it? Well, I think maybe we can define work-life balance as the relationship of the stuff that you feel you should be doing versus the stuff that you feel that you want to do. That's maybe what it's about, right? So this is why I called this session a value-based look at work-life balance, because it's pretty much about your values. It's about what you really want, and it's about what you feel you are doing because you have to do it. So this is about the values that you hold for yourself and the relationship of those values towards the work that you're doing. Now, I want to talk about this interesting little thing that is related to work-life balance, which is efficiency. Because obviously, very often when you talk about work-life balance, it's about like, how can I reduce the time I need to finish my task list? How can I create more space for things that I think are fun? So I need to do the stuff that I want to do first. And I need to be efficient in order to do this. And efficiency is interesting because I am going to tell you that you should stop thinking about it. Stop being efficient. It's not worth it. Why? I think we can define efficiency as doing what you plan to do in the time that you gave yourself to do it. Then you're efficient, right? I would like to replace that concept with effectiveness. Effectiveness can be defined as doing what matters most to reach a certain goal. Now, suppose you're just, in your work environment and you're going to start your day and you make a task list. And I wrote down a task list, and it's something actually that is very closely related to my own task list very often. And it says stuff like, I want to attain inbox 0. At the end of the day, I want to have answer to all the mails I need to answer to. I want to have a clean inbox where nothing is distracting me. Wonderful. Then I need to file some reports today. I need to organize my invoices. I need to organize some team meetings, talk about some stuff with my team. And I need to finally read that article about how to be more efficient. Yeah, well, at the end of the day, if you've accomplished all those tasks, you probably feel pretty good about yourself because you've been efficient. You set out to do all these things and then you've done them. But the question is, what have you really accomplished? What was the goal? It seems that in many cases, and I speak for myself as well, in many cases, the goal has been to actually tick off the lists on my task list. And that's not really bringing you anywhere, is it? I mean, it gives you a feeling of accomplishment, but the question is, does it really do anything for your business or for whatever that you are working on. So effectiveness is doing what matters most in order to reach certain goals. And I'm going to give you an example of how I have been effective in the recent past while having the experience of being very inefficient. And that was very interesting to me, because then it really showed me that we need to stop focusing on efficiency. The thing was that for one of my other businesses, Victoria Designs, I had this big task for myself, which was to rework an entire sales funnel, an email sales funnel for a certain type of promotions that we're doing, which basically involve sending people discount codes at certain times so that they can buy our products in our shop with a discount. And I had this idea a couple of months ago that if we rework that email to be more personal, to be more suited to where that person is in the relationship that they have with us. For example, if they haven't bought anything yet, or if they have bought something, or maybe they're a good client, or maybe they're a very long-time client, that kind of stuff. If we segment our email list into all different categories and send these people specific emails that are tailored to them with maybe, like, say, a different amount of the discount, then that might be something that has good potential to increase our income. Now, the thing was, this one single thing on my to-do list sat there for a couple of months, and I felt very inefficient because I was never able to complete it. It's a big task, of course, and I was also procrastinating because other tasks on my list were easier to do, simpler to do, inbox zero, I just did that, and then I felt great about myself because I had accomplished another task. And so the rewriting of this entire sales funnel, it took me a while to get to it, and once I finally did it, it took me a long time, because in the end I ended up writing more than 60 different emails. So that felt very inefficient, but, and there's the trick, it was super effective. When we first ran this new email funnel for the discount codes, we tripled our income from this one change that I made. So I was amazed. I never thought this would make such a difference. But so this is an aside for maybe a different Facebook Live session once. If you're not doing a mailing list, you need to start one right now. And if you're not segmenting your email list, you need to start doing that right now as well. But what I wanted to say about this is this effectiveness that I found in doing this was completely opposite to my feeling of being efficient in my daily task list. So I would strongly advise you to give up the search for efficiency and to start thinking about what really matters, what makes it the biggest difference if you would do it today. Another thing I'd like to talk about is psychology. I mean, this is a deep subject, and it's probably something I'll do a session about in the future as well. But there's this one little thing when it comes to work-life balance that you have to think about, and that is that very often we feel guilty for not working. If I would give you the simple choice between having worked for 10 hours in a day, like really hard work, and not really accomplishing much when it comes to either revenue or new clients or whatever goal you have in your business, or the other choice would be that you have worked like maybe 1 or 2 hours, but you've accomplished a lot, then what would you prefer? Well, obviously, the second option is more attractive, but most people, when they are faced with social situations in which, for example, their colleagues or their friends would ask them about their day, they would feel compelled to actually say, oh, I worked really hard for 10 hours, because that's something that is apparently in our society is socially validated. If you say that you work really hard for a long period of time, even if you were just like scribbling some emails to people who are not important, it makes you feel good because of social validation. If you would say to these people, no, I just worked for 1 hour and I did something that changed my business and gave me 20% more clients, even if the result was something great, the fact that you've only worked for an hour might make people go like, hey, wait a second, you only worked for 1 hour? That's not great. I mean, why didn't you work more, right? So that's something interesting that we have to think about, like this psychology of work for the sake of work, that very often we will push ourselves to work longer hours because we feel then we can validate our sense of not being guilty because we've worked really hard. So we need to think about that. Now, this is, of course, all mostly for entrepreneurs, I would say. I mean, people who are in charge and who have power over their own time. But what, for example, if you are a freelancer? Well, of course, the whole concept of efficiency versus effectiveness is still valid for freelancers as well. But there's another concept that I'd like to talk about that is very interesting if you're a freelancer, and that is actually boundaries. This may seem like a surprise to you that I talk about something that is so closely related to, I would say, personal relationships in this context, but healthy boundaries is crucial if you are a freelancer and you're thinking about your work-life balance. The thing is, if you're a freelancer, obviously there is some kind of power relationship between your client and you. And I've experienced in working with our clients that for many freelancers, the client will always push. They will push, 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 and push. They will push the price down. They will push the amount of work you do for the same price up. They will try to push the quality and the quantity of your work. They will push you always in all situations because obviously that is more effective for them. So the question becomes, how can you create strong boundaries towards the clients that you work with? And the best definition that I have ever encountered of strong and healthy boundaries is the one that Mark Manson said, and I will give it to you now. He writes, healthy boundaries is taking responsibility for your own actions and feelings while not taking responsibility for actions and feelings of others. Now, it will probably take some time before the implications of that start to sink in. Very specifically, if you're a freelancer and you're dealing with a client, what this means, for example, that if you deliver what you have promised to deliver at the end of the day to the client, and the client goes like, oh, but something's changed, there's an emergency, we need to do like 3 more this or 2 more that, and please could you push it and do it by tonight? If you say yes, you're actually trying to manage the feelings of the other person, because maybe you're afraid that if you say no, they will feel angry or sad or bad or whatever. And that is not your task. It may seem difficult in the beginning to set these kind of boundaries towards clients because you might be afraid that they will not want to work with you anymore. But it's my experience that if you express healthy boundaries and are clear with them and clear about the why of the boundaries, then clients will actually respect you more and will probably end up working with you more. So that's something to think about as well. Now, what if you're an employee? Of course, as an employee, you're still dealing with the idea of like, how can I create a healthy work-life balance for myself? And of course, boundaries are important, and the whole efficiency versus effectiveness discussion is still very much valid. But there's another thing, specifically for employees, that I would like to talk about now, and that is purpose. When you are faced with situations as an employee that threaten your work-life balance, you need to think about, wait a second, what exactly is my purpose here? Or even a better question would be, whose purpose am I actually serving? So many times, employers will also push employees to do things like stay late, overwork because a project needs to be finished, whatever, we all have these situations. But the question is, why would you do that? Now, if the answer is, I'm doing that because I know if I do this, I will obtain some kind of goal of mine, for example, a promotion or a raise or a better negotiating position. If that's the case, then sure, you can go for that. But if the purpose that you're serving by staying late, by messing up your work-life balance, is actually the purpose of the company or of your boss, then you really need to think about it and think about whether or not it's worth it to keep pushing your own life out of the window to serve the purpose of someone else, because it will not give you anything. So there's something that you need to consider. And I would say that it's not bad to have your own sense of purpose, your own set of goals, and to very strongly see if anything that you do is aligned with your own purpose and your own goals. And if not, I don't really see a reason to do those specific things. Something I'd like to ask you to do now, if you're watching this and if you have some time later today maybe, is related to work-life balance, and that is the idea of making a list of things that actually bring you joy. I was reading Brené Brown yesterday, and I can recommend Brené Brown for everyone watching. And she was talking also about this idea of comparing yourself to others, and how a lot of the things that we think we want are actually basically just validation in the eyes of others. Like, a bigger house, better car. And she writes about the idea that instead of making like a list of things that you think you want, you could make a list of things that bring you joy. And it ends up often being the case that the things that bring you joy are very simple, mundane things, like connecting with certain people in your life, watching a sunset, being in nature, going for a walk, stuff like that. And the idea here is that your work-life balance will tremendously improve if you take more attention to what's on your joy list than what's on your want list or to-do list. So take a moment to take a piece of paper and write down like maybe 5 or even 10 things that that bring you joy, and then try to infuse those into your life. Try to do more of that more often. Okay, this is pretty much the end of the concepts I wanted to talk about today when it comes to work-life balance. I promised you to come back to my confession earlier. So the confession was that I really, really dislike the term work-life balance. And well, there's a very simple reason. In that definition, in that phrase, work-life balance, you kind of automatically feel that work is something negative, because it's excluded from what you call life. There's no such thing as work-life balance. The truth is that your work is always a part of your life. So the question becomes, how can you make sure that the work that you do and that the work that you're actually doing every day is something that makes your life better and not worse? If at the end of the day, after doing your work, you feel exhausted, tired, burned out, stressed, depressed, anything, I would say you need to strongly think about whether or not you want to be in that position and whether or not you need that specific type of work. Because if you are able to create the lifestyle you want, doing what you love, which is the mission basically of StepUp Labs that I co-founded, then work becomes an integral part of a life that you want to have. And it becomes something that you can do with joy and with pleasure. And you will not only improve your own mood and your own happiness because of that, but you will also greatly improve the quality of your work, I believe, because if you work happily, you will work better. So that's basically the last message I have for you. If you have any questions, now is the time to ask. As always, both me and Charlie, my co-founder, are available for you in our group, which I will post under the video later so that you can join it if you want. The idea of the group is to encourage people to talk about things like these, like work-life balance, the challenges they face in creating a life they want, the things that come up when they create a business, all this kind of stuff. And we'll be there in the group, we'll be giving advice, we'll be moderating. But of course, it's great if people also start like supporting each other. That will be fabulous. So let me check if we have any questions in the comments. Oh wow, there's many people. That's great. I don't really see any questions. Charlie made a comment. Yeah, okay. Charlie said that in her experience, personal experience, and also as a coach, we tend to give our business, our job, the highest priority in our life. And this often leads to burnouts. And then she asked the question, how do you prioritize your goals? And that's a very good question. And it's very strongly related to what I was saying about your joy list. Why would you prioritize things that bring you hardship and stress over things that bring you joy and happiness? Usually it's because of a sense that we are obliged to do so. Just things work, right? That's also why I dislike the term work-life balance. Work in this case is seen as a negative de facto. It's seen as something that should be painful, because otherwise you'd call it life. So I don't adhere to this view. I think it's possible to create a life for yourself where work is something that you do with joy and happiness as well. And then this idea of prioritizing the goals becomes different, because then when you prioritize the goals that lead to a better business, automatically you're improving your life quality as well. Any other questions? Oh, something in Dutch here. Okay, thank you, Caroline, for that comment. It's great to see people are actually thinking about doing what they love and about the work-life balance that they have while watching this. That's great. If this can be some kind of way for you to at least think about the things I'm talking about, then I've already reached my goal. Okay, so if you have no further questions, I just want to thank you for being here and for listening. I will post our group in the comments under this video, so you can join if you want. And if you have any kind of questions, you can also always mail me at Joachim@StepUpLabs.co. Ciao.